Welcome back everyone to the channel. It's me, Gary House, leader of the Run Strong Club, and this is my follow-up review of the Salomon Ultra Glide. So if you haven't already caught my last video, which was my initial thoughts on the Ultra Glide, straight out the box onto the local trails, then it might be worth just checking that one out. I just go through some simple facts about the shoe and give you the rundown of how I felt about them straight away. We're now over a week later and I've gone through a series of runs in different conditions, different locations, different lengths. For example, I took them out for 6 hours on the UTS Ultra Trail Snowdonia 100 mile course, first of all, which was a bit of a risk because it rained all day. But I was keen to find out how would they hold up. Would they hold water? Would they grip to the wet rock? Would they be okay on the wet ground? And if I'm honest, they perform really well because, like I touched on in the first video, if I'm looking for a shoe that kind of ticks every box, I'm going into the jungle here. If I'm looking for a shoe that ticks every box for 100 miles in Snowdonia, it's just not going to happen. So what I'm looking at is a good shoe that's going to be comfy, secure, not put me at too much risk when I'm trying to play to my strengths, which is the downhill running. So let's go over the shoe again. Salomon Ultra Glide. It's Salomon's first kind of go at max cushioning, or that's what they're calling it, max cushioning. It's not on the same scale as a Hoka, for example, but it is slightly wider than a typical Salomon shoe. So the first big test was that 6 hour run out in Snowdonia, and like I said, it rained all day. And if I'm honest, the first impressions were good, but there were some drawbacks too. For example, as soon as I hit the first steep climb, I could feel like the back of my heel was slipping a little bit, and that's kind of confirmed with, remember on the first video I said I'm not sure how I would enjoy the makeup of this section. I don't even know what that's called. Most brands over the last few years have had a nice thin tongue, kind of sits really well, and you don't really get the debris in and little stones and grit. If I'm honest, on a long day these did let that kind of stuff in. Now my kids are 5 and 3 and they've got a pair of Salomons and the back of their shoe is exactly the same. So I don't know whether they've just run out of time in the design or they're cutting kind of costs down, but this is still £130 for a shoe, and if I'm paying that much, this is just me personally, I would like to see that a bit sharpened up. Now the first big descent that I had, and I'm talking pretty steep wet ground, the inner soles just flew out. They were kind of, one was slipping forward, one was slipping back. Now if I wasn't such a world-class descender sorry, if I wasn't such a good descender, I would have had to stop halfway and kind of take the inner soles out. Since I've taken them out and I've been on longer runs since that, I did not have one issue with my foot moving around, and obviously the inner sole didn't do much, so I was fine. As for grip, the contour grip on the Salomon shoe, I mean, they always get it right as long as you use it in the specific way that it's intended, I always think. Wet ground has been okay. If it's wet and loose, I've been on my bum a couple of times, I'll be honest. As for the fit, if your feet are like hobbits and will only fit in, say, an Ultra or those Topos, then they still might be on the snug side. But for me, who like a wide fit such as a Terra Ultra, things like that, or some of the Hokas, these fit really well. What I will say is this midsole, it's not too big for me to think that I've got no proprioception and I'm at risk of turning my ankle in these big mountain days, but it does give me a good level of comfort. What I think this shoe does really well is gives you lots of cushioning, gives you kind of good comfort, but it also allows you to feel the terrain and gives you good proprioception. And when I'm moving over the rocky terrain, I feel like I'm in control and I don't feel like I'm gonna turn an ankle when I'm on the steeper stuff. So I think they've done that really well. I wouldn't change much about that. You can see that already, like I say already, we've done about up to 16 hours of running in these shoes now, and the midsole is getting a little bit squashed, but for me they just feel so comfy. I would wear them on recovery runs, long mountain efforts, and pretty much everything in between. They don't feel too heavy, the weight is evenly distributed, and although you're not going to be doing your speed sessions in these shoes, I ran on the road quite comfortably, I ran at a good effort level quite comfortably, never did I feel like they were going to slow me down. So yeah, you can probably see where I'm going with this. I really like this shoe. If it's a dry day, and it's been dry for say a week before the UTS 100 miler, then I'll be wearing this shoe, guaranteed. The other option I had was the VJ Ultra, and I'm going to give you at the end of this video just some quick comparisons because I know some of you guys are interested in that. So I'm just going to finish up with a little bit of a comparison between the Ultra Glide, the Salomon Ultra Glide, and the VJ Ultra, which is what a couple of you asked about, which I'm happy to do because that's essentially what I've been testing. So I would say width wise they're pretty similar. I haven't kind of measured it or anything like that but the fit for me, and like I said, I like a wider fit, they both feel absolutely fine. What I will mention is for the uppers, there's not much difference in the uppers. You've got good protection in the toe box for the VJ Ultra, same deal with the Salomon Ultra Glide. I mean, you can see the state of the shoe. I've put it through 16-20 hours of mountain miles now, and haven't had an issue when I've been kicking rocks or anything like that. There is a bit of movement in the upper for the Ultra Glide, whereas there is a fit lock system that VJ Ultra use. It does seem to keep your foot in place a little bit more. I know someone was asking me about pronation and pronation control and stuff like that. To an extent, it just comes down to your own conditioning and your own fit for the shoe. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having pronation in your stride. But I didn't have an issue with my foot rolling in or anything like that with the VJ Ultra, which I did hear of on the previous video. So it's very difficult for me to compare. What I would say is durability wise, obviously it's still kind of early to say, but for a mountain shoe they've both done really well. There's the kind of comparison in soles. I mean, you can see I've put them through like quite a bit of a battering already. So I'm really happy to say that there is good durability from both the VJ Ultra and the Ultra Glide. As for level of comfort, like I've said, this Ultra Glide is such a comfy shoe. I would say these come out on top for comfort, and you still get that proprioception like we've touched on. You still get to feel the ground. If I wanted to run some faster sections and it was very dry, or there was some longer road sections, then this would kind of be a good choice. When it comes down to grip for the both of them, the main differences seem to kind of be on the wet rock. If I'm honest, there hasn't been an instance in all of my runs where I've slipped on any kind of wet rock in these. It's that kind of sticky, so I'm 100% confident in those shoes. I have had some slips in the Salomon Ultra Glides, and they've been going uphill, going downhill on some loose kind of gravelly stuff where, you know, when your feet go from under you more than anything when it's a little bit wet, which wasn't the case in the VJ Ultra. The good news is I'd be very happy to recommend both of these shoes for long trail and mountain shoes for the majority of people. There's not a lot wrong with them, they're just little kind of bits here and there. And this has been my little insight to the Salomon Ultra Glide. Like I say, it's never going to be a perfect shoe for a big mountain race, but if you've got hours to run on the trails and it's dry, I would definitely check this shoe out. So thank you for watching my latest review, which this YouTube channel didn't set out to be, but people seem to like them and enjoy them. Same as always, you know the drill. If you liked it, please press like, hit subscribe. What else do you have to do? Tell all your mates. Don't watch everyone else's YouTube. Just come here for your video pleasure.